viewers and chess lovers all over the world. So yesterday we had a set of interesting games that kept us occupied, and today is no different. And we shall move into the first GM closed tournament, where the game between Edward Miller and Axel Gergely, the grandmaster from Hungary. He had lost yesterday and would want to make a compensation by winning today, and his opponent Miller has made his first move, b3. Surprise one coming from Edward, but it is a surprise that wins you the game most of the times. So that way you could see that players have rattled their opening moves pretty fast, and White has kind of opened up fully on the queen side. So also for Black, and both are yet to decide where to castle. Quite likely it is going to be the short castle, because the queen side being all the more open, it will be highly unsafe for the king to land there. So it is going to be an interesting game on the cards. I'm sure Gergely would love to get one back today. We now move on to board number 2, where again, just like Gergely, Igor Gleck, the grandmaster from Belgium, is playing with Durac Khan. Here, Igor had actually lost his game to Indian grandmaster the Shyam Sundar Mohan Raj yesterday, so he would definitely want to make amends about it today. And the game has come up very quickly into the middle game. We could see that 4 knights defense was what was played there, and it comes with quite a solid opening setup, with both White and Black have nothing much to worry about. And into the middle game, quite interestingly, Igor went for giving up the pawn on b2 for more activity, and we could see ourselves into a middle game where the queen, 2 rooks and bishop of the same color, and pawns are also stuck in the same files. So it looks very much equal. And the time factor is also not that different between both of them. Igor has about an hour and 8 minutes on the clock, and Durac Khan has about an hour and a little less than 20 minutes, which means he has got 80 minutes compared to the 68 minutes that Igor has. So the double rook and the queen in game is almost absolutely equal, but still one needs to be careful about it, because the pieces are very powerful, the queen and the rooks. So one minor slip and either of the players could find themselves in deep trouble. So wise use of time and making a good move after move could possibly save the day for either of them. We now move on to game number 3 between Moritz Stetner and M. Shyam Sundar, the grandmaster from India. This again is a Nimzo-Indian, the time-tested one that has been played over years and years. And gives a very solid start of opening for both white and black. And white would really need to work harder to get something out of the opening, because certain openings are, we could say that they are pretty much dry, and on most occasions we could also see that even the player playing with the white pieces, making the first move, really doesn't get much out of the opening, which could be a little bit of a frustration for the player with the white pieces. So here we could see that after a trade-off of a minor piece early on, the position looks, I would say, rock solid for both white and black, unless one of the players comes up and concedes a small mistake. Things are not going to change really much. But as we could see, that black needs to be a little cautious, because slowly but steadily he could find himself in a bind whereby his pieces are getting tied up, and he would slowly but steadily walking into possibly a zugzwang, which could favor his opponent more than Shyam, who is playing with the black pieces. Here possibly white could want to expand with something like b4, and then you could see that black is trying to push on either side, or solid to semi-solid defense from white is putting that away. We will now move on to the next game between Ashwath, yes, the junior boy from India who has been really making big news recent times. He had a great tournament in the Grand K Open in Karlsruhe, where he managed to win the tournament, a huge tournament that had around close to 3,000 participants, and then could be turning out to be one of his biggest wins in the open section, where he won a huge prize money of $20,000 for taking the title, where the other title, that of the Grand Freestyle title, went to Magnus Carlsen, the world #1. So that is keeping himself in very rich company. And here we could see that he opened with the time-tested the King Pawn opening, and then faced the French. And just after a couple of standard opening moves, black decided to go for going for a trade-off with a doubled pawn structure on the F file, quite possibly trying to do something on the G file, moving the rook at a later stage. And we could see that the moves were played in double quick time. And Duong Quang Bak indicated his intention to fight and go for the kill by playing H5 early. And not to be outdone, the Indian boy came up with a break on the D file, playing out the D5 pawn from D4. So we could see that white is playing pretty steady and black is trying to defend it. But having cracked open the defenses on the king's side, black will possibly only go for a castle on the queen side, but there is always this danger that the queen side is kind of half open with pawns on a6 and b5, so that if white decides, he could come much faster to attack the black king. So that being the case, it is important for the king to remain safe, despite having two rooks and multiple pieces for the defense. So it only comes to show that a little bit of caution from Duong Quang Bak would go a great way in helping him out to stabilize the position. In the next game, we could say that Ashat Parvanyan playing with Zaur Hasanov. And the opening has evolved pretty fast. English opening that Parvanyan Ashot chose has given a very solid setup for both white and black. So it is going to take quite some time for white to really make a breakthrough. We now move on to the second tournament, the IM Close tournament, where Lukas Stettner plays Elias Wonderlich in the top board. And you can see that the game itself is taking some nice shape, whereby white's pieces, despite getting stuck in the opening base, would need to do something faster, quicker to save any future difficulty. And you could see that the present evaluation is slightly tilted towards that of black, largely because of the pawn structure and then the doubled pawn that white has got himself saddled on the C file could be the reasons, but it should still be anybody's game. Too early to make any prediction about it. We now go to the second board, which features the IM Norm aspirant, Hemant Ram, who is a former national amateur champion from India. He's been doing quite well in the European circuit, playing a couple of tournaments in Hungary before heading for Munich. So today's game, we can see that Hemant comes up with the standard, the E4, and faces the Caro-Kann. And early on, you can see that the game has evolved into the Caro-Kann exchange variation. And both the players have been rattling out the moves pretty fast. And the middle game is appearing in no time. And, white has brought out most of his pieces out of the starting blocks and has castled the king side and put himself in an extremely comfortable positions. But again, there's no significant advantage or otherwise for both the players. So as long as the time factor is keeping them in check, the game as of now is likely to head for a draw, because neither white nor black has something of a very significant advantage. We'll now move on to the next game between Kulner, Ruben Gideon, and Ziska Roberts. This game, as you could see, has evolved into kind of a Trompowsky game. You can remember that Trompowsky is played by many players sometimes as more as a surprise value than anything. I remember the sixth game between Vichy Anand and Natalie Karpov played in the World Championships in Lausanne when uh, Vichy required a win. And then he surprised Karpov, who was expecting something like E4, with a D4 followed by BG5 and went on to win and equalize the score from 2-3 to 3 games all before taking the World Championship into a tiebreak. It was those days when the World Championships came from the knockouts, and the World Champions was waiting for the knockout winner to play. And Vichy won the huge knockout in Groningen, where he defeated Michael Adams in a very close match. black also might be probably be willing to do something fast so that the surprise of the opening isn't really going to take him that far because you could see that the player on the other side has comfortably equalized and is equally lashing in moves time to time and doing it very fast. So, in case someone would want to have a result other than a draw, then we could see that they really need to work hard. And this is going to be one such position where, with equality looking hard on either player, they would really need to push themselves a little bit. We shall now go on to the game number 2 between Birke Dennis and Krasnikov Namzik. And here we could see that the game has come up. The position on hand is the Sicilian, where we could see that it holds no real big threats, but then we could see that the white king has moved up to f3. So that's one thing that white needs to be careful about because Namik Krasnikov has already noticed and is exerting enough pressures. And the knight sitting on d5 could become a big source of a bother for white because even after the smoke gets clear, the knight can still become a dangerous player under any circumstance. So, but one thing that Birke Dennis would need to remember is that P.D. Iman from India and Ferdinand Petzelberger. The opening has come up with the Sicilian, and as long as white is fully ready, one can say for sure that Sicilian is yet another opening, but you need to be a little careful about it because it can suddenly turn very vicious. In this case, we see that game has kind of moved into the middle game area, and the centralization of pieces is taking place on both white and black camp. I'm sure we could see that somehow white still is holding to a comfortable position, and if it continues the same way, they can possibly look into only a draw, so it requires one of the players to take some risk. And I'm sure the younger one, the boy from India, is probably could be the one who would take the risk and push his way forward. And we have the next game between David Sedelmeier and Jochen Starup. Here we could see that black would be slightly better because black has kind of managed to move the white king closer to the queen. So the king, you can see, is more like an offside where the king is into the h3 square. So white needs to be extremely careful because of the, I would say, precarious position of the white king is kind of likely to tilt the game and the position in forward for the black, because the king as of now is frozen, and a simple plan to suffocate the white king may work faster because it might take some time for white to regroup, before which the deal or the mating possibility for the black on white's king is something that has to be seen to be believed. And in this case, you could say that it's still black is a little better, but still some way to go, because we have seen such positions where completing the job is of paramount importance and nothing else. So you could see that post check by black, white decides to go into the shell into h3, and then he has got only himself and his mind to agree or disagree, because the isolated pawn on the king side could turn to be an isolated or not so isolated thing, because the king walking into a real difficult position is not something that we see, but David Sedelmeier is probably has his own ideas and calculations to decide how to go about saving the king. We shall next move on to the game between David Sedelmeier and Jochen Starup. Here we could see that the game has opened up into another Sicilian. So we'll quickly go through the opening phase. You can see that the knights are getting traded off early, and then the bishops are roaring to go into the diagonal. So anything is possible, because Sicilian is Sicilian, where huge number of upsets have taken place on the cards. And we can hope that this could be a little different from the rest. And you could see that the game is slowly about to enter the middle game. And somehow white is finding himself into a slightly unpleasant position, but he has found himself exchanging the pieces time to time, which would be quite handy at an appropriate time. And in this position, the king finds himself in a corner, and we could see that this move was a little forced. Otherwise, he gets a bit strangulated. So here we could see that king h3 is still something to play about, and we'll move on to the next game between Jochen Schillmann and Thomas Hofelsar. So here you could see that the advanced pawn from the C file, the black pawn, is probably making the game very interesting, as it's just 2 squares away from the queening. And here Jochen needs to be careful about it, and he's got plenty of time to think and play his moves. We'll just have a look from the opening phase as to how it evolved into what it is now. So you could see the Slav defense in practice. Well, that's no real big demon to be afraid of. Slav has been played even in World Championships sometimes, and considered as something very basic and strong to find yourself play these kind of interesting positions. Early on, we could see that white has slowly but steadily brought up each and every piece, and it's here that we find that you could see that the pawn on c3 is going to be a thorn in the flesh, because until it gets removed, and, the problem remains continuously. So we hope that somehow Jochen Schillmann will extricate himself from the position where he is now. And you'll see the last game of our DGT coverage, where TL Nickel, who played the top board yesterday, is playing Somar Stefan. And it is quite likely that we don't see any move being made, largely because his opponent might not have turned up to play, and it could be a walkover on board number 6. And we'll now go back to the GM Close tournament, the match between Edward Miller and Aysel Gergely. Has compared to the last time, maybe 1 or 2 moves have been played, and I'm sure this time around we could see that the game is still pretty balanced until one of the players going for the win and starts taking risk can make a difference. Otherwise, it's quite likely heading for a draw. But of course, there is going to be time pressure, and sometimes you need to handle the demons in the mind as well. So that way you could see that both white as well as black are in least trouble. So now go on to the game number 2 between Igor Gluck, and we could see that today he's played with Huracan, where after close to nearly 30 moves, the position has evolved into a rook and pawn ending with black has a minor edge where he has got the extra pawn running down on the c file, which I'm sure he's going to press very hard because largely because of his loss yesterday. I'm sure he would offer the trade-off of the kings could be very dangerous for white because the king and pawn ending is downright lost. So as long as white retains the rook, his chances to draw will be quite high. The rook on a2 is presently cutting off the king, but otherwise black would need to push forward the c pawn and take it for a march, and quite likely you return. Things could be entirely different, including the shape of the game. So this is where the experience in handling such situations matters. And the next game is between Moritz Stettner and Shyam Sundar, the grandmaster from the Railways India. So you could see that the Nimzo Indian, which we saw until the opening phase, and we could see that prior to the visit that we had last time, one couple of hosts have been exchanged. See, right now it is slightly in favor of white, and if black is not a little bit more careful, so that way we could see that white has a big space advantage, and I'm sure he would want to expand that slowly but steadily into a win. And definitely he's going to make things very difficult for the Grandmaster Shyam Sundar because most of his pawns are located in black. And this Pakistan position is that white is a little better, largely because of the space advantage, but black would still, I'm sure, fight for equality. And the time position is roughly very equal. Both of them are holding around 58 minutes on clock. So I'm sure Indian Grandmaster Shyam Sundar would really make a match of it. We shall now go to the next board where we saw the one in the earlier one where it's like a master-student thing where the master himself is playing the tournament. That's GM Shyam Sundar, and his student is the student is having two GM norms and is fighting to make his third and final GM norm. With a rating of 2488, he has already crossed the live rating of 2500 some time back. And Ashwath, the young star, would just about need a final GM norm to become a GM elect, after which the FIDE would take the proposal and approve it to confirm him as India's latest So here you could see that the hard push of the king saint pawns a little while ago when one of the pawns is crashing into the g3, into the defenses of white. But it's nothing great to be worried about because white is surrounded by his own men on most of the boards, and it shouldn't be too difficult for them to find their way and then escape with a draw. We'll now go on to the game after, the one between Dashwath and Duong. This one is from Paran Panyan Ashot and Hassan Awzar. We could see that from the earlier position that we had seen until now, it has slightly changed the contours of the opening, and I'm sure that company is likely to make things better for white, because you could see that white has a big space advantage, and his two knights and two bishops are pretty well placed, and black is looking more like into a cluster position where you could see that most of the pieces have difficulty in finding the right squares, and so very soon black will need to act fast, otherwise he might find himself facing the music. The next after the Parvanyan Ashot game is the game between Lukas Sturtner and Elias Wanderlich. And the time is also going neck to neck between both these players. So that way we could see that the time is not going to decide the winner or probably this master. So here still after almost an hour of play, just about 10 moves have been played by both players. Quite a bit of surprise, because we could see that Lucas has consolidated his position, where his doubled pawn is also not a great sign of anxiety. So here we see the game between Hemant Ram and Walter Richard. So this one is from the I Am Close tournament. The Indian boy did extremely well yesterday to crush his opponent, and I'm sure he has got different ideas for today's game as well. So because we could see that the queen foray deep into the black area shows that white continues to be aggressive, whereas black still got some issues to clear about, before which time I'm sure we now go on to the game between Gideon Ruben Kulner and Robert Zisk. Relatively, we could see that white is extremely comfortable with the idea of making use of them position on hand, but still is loaded largely in favor of white as Kulner prepares to unwind the center and go for a winning plan. Then comes the game between Darshan and Petra Loginov. You could see that Darshan, who had actually lost his opening round yesterday, would, in fact, you can see Darshan right now is holding both his hands and holding his head in thought, trying to figure out what Petra Loginov might be thinking and what could be the next plan. We travel across the world by this young boy in search of high rating, and I am Norm. Needs definitely to be appreciated, and it is almost a series of tournaments that she has been playing by. He has landed. Darshan, by the way, has landed in Italy about a couple of weeks back, and then there he has played one international federated tournament, followed by another one in Croatia, and this being the third, and he would play one more before returning back home. So our hats off to this little boy who's showing so much of perseverance to work himself towards the goal. So today's game, we could see that Darshan would really want to offset yesterday's opening round loss. So which means he has to think or apply differently towards obtaining a win. And the position on hand, it looks roughly equal. So it would come up in some way where a little bit of surprise from his boy to his opponent would do him some bit of good. The final game of the I Am Closed tournament between Enis Zuferi and Nicolas Petriashvili is about to touch the 20th move mark. And we could see that it's still very much even. And the pawn, the center pawn, which is a little isolated for white, could possibly make things a little difficult for him at a later stage. So, because it could become a target, and slowly black could consume the pawn and try to take the game into an end game with the pawn of position. So that way, if you could see that white, despite having two bishops in two kinds of squares closer to the king, and they sit behind each other and look like a laser attack, but then it's nothing much other than protecting the pawn, and the bishops getting to be active and moving about on the king side would probably start to turn things around for white. But presently it is black that is more comfortable, and we will try to kind of improve the position for white in some way, because both white and black are fighting to get the better of each other, but white has got some bit of a space advantage. I'm sure that would mean something, and he would press hard to find a way to increase the advantage. And moving on to the open section, the top board game between Thomas Reich and Gil Arthur. Looks moving into an interesting phase because you could see that the white's pawns on the queen side are trying to push forward, and on the other hand, the black is trying to push its two pawns holding close to the center, and all the pieces are kind of primed for attack, both for white and black. So you could still see that the evaluation for this position is roughly equal. So it is up to one of the players to think of taking some bit of risk to really change the course of the game. The second board we have Birke Dennis with white pieces facing Namik Krasnikov with black. Here probably something might take place very quickly because on one side is Birke Dennis who has got about a little more than an hour, and on the other side is Namik Krasnikov, and there is some lack of development which black has kind of not paid attention to, because both his bishops and both his rooks are still not yet out of the starting blocks. So we need to find a plan for black to do something about it, because he has about a series of pawns also centered around the D, E, and F files holding forth. Whereas the odd part of the whole thing is the placement of king for white, which we can see is the landing of king on G3, which is quite unusual and some bit of a surprise that black is not working hard to exploit the advanced king, or which is a little unsafe for the king himself. So we need to see that in some quick time, black is likely to come up with a plan to trap the white king, who is really into a position where he should not be. So maybe at this point we can take a short break, and then it's been a while. We will just about get back in quick time. Until then, you can still enjoy the video, and we'll be back soon. welcome back to this the big winter tournament in Munich. The Atomis GM closed, IM closed, and the Open tournament at Hotel Atomis near the Munich Airport. We have three tournaments happening simultaneously. We will start our midpoint review of the GM closed tournament. The first game between Grandmaster Asel Jejeli of Hungary is playing with Edward Miller. Miller is with white, and roughly after about 2.5 hours of play, the game still remains very even. And as of now, we could see that white has got vast areas of space in its position, and black is, in terms of material equality, is fine, but then has got a little bit of awkward placed king in front of his F8 bishop, and then the rook itself is also tied up behind the bishop. So I should say that white is all the more comfortable compared to that of a black, and should be in a position to improvise quite quickly. So unless Grandmaster Gergely Axel does something, he might face the difficulty of going on to lose his second game in a row, because the king and the bishop behind and the rook behind the bishop is truly in a very awkward state, and unless something is going to be done pretty quickly, then it should be a spot of bother for Gergely Axel. And the time factor is also loaded more in favor of white, as we see that the white has around 51 minutes compared to that of 18 for black. So it's kind of a wake-up call. I'm sure Gergely, who's fully prepared, should be doing something to save himself and the game today. Further down, we could see that the game between Igor Glek. So Igor Glek is playing with Grandmaster Jurek Khan, and the time factor is again more in favor of Jurek Khan, who defeated Axel Gergely yesterday. But right now, unless the Igor Glek does something quickly, he might find himself in trouble, because the pawn mass on the queen side and the extra pawn on the king side might tilt the game in favor of Jurek Khan, who may probably go on to get his second Grandmaster scalp in a day. So it is time to the Belgian Grandmaster to quickly do something so that he doesn't get deeper into trouble. So that is the point of the rook and pawn ending, where you could see that the pawn on the c7 could also play a major role, because quite likely the pawn on e6 might fall away, because it's pretty weak, and then to support that could become very difficult. So that will give black an extra pawn on the king side and one extra pawn on the queen side, could be more than sufficient to tilt the game in favor, but then the rook endings are always very dicey. So one needs to really look into it very hard and work gradually but steadily towards getting the rook endings in one's favor. Is not an easy task at all. And despite looking to be possibly a theoretically drawn game, one should say that it is not, because it has got rich possibilities of producing a result, and an upset one at that. For the second day in a row, Jurek can conquer a grandmaster and go home a happy man. We now go on to the next game between Moritz Stetner and Grandmaster Shyam Sundar Mohan Raj from India. We could see that white is really squeezing out the black out of the good possibilities of a move, and the game probably looks very much going in favor of white, because I could see that black is maybe a little getting suffocated here, finding the right squares for the pieces, and all the pieces getting huddled on the backyard. So unless something is being done, and also getting done quite quickly, it is going to be a possible defeat for the Grandmaster Shyam Sundar, because he has got a big saving job to be done, and I'm sure he will work harder for that, but it requires a good amount of precision and then execution in double quick time, because his opponent has around 40 minutes, whereas Shyam has around 15 minutes. So that could put our boy in real trouble. Then we go to the next board, where his student, the Indian prodigy, Ashwath Siva, is playing with white pieces, and he's facing Duong Quang Bach. Right now, Ashwath has no problems with his pieces, because he has got a comfortable position on hand. The two rooks and two knights, which is two rooks and two bishops. But the time factor is something that the young Indian needs to be aware of, because he has got just about 6 minutes compared to that of the 48 for his opponent. So unless he is going to be very alert, he would find himself in trouble very soon. And he's playing for his final GM norm, so he needs to be probably be more cautious, and the best would be to avoid the defeat first, because though he's quite good, his time is probably something to be worrisome, because his opponent has got more than 40 minutes extra, and then he's really going to apply a lot of pressure. And the double bishops are always a tricky thing, so because they function like a laser, sitting right behind. Those bishops can be highly bothersome factors, and unless someone defends very accurately, it could be again some trouble for Ashwath. And I'm sure that he would also notice that it is time to bring out his absolutely unused rook on the A1, which has been there for quite a long time. So once the rook comes into play, along with the knight on A4, which is more like an offside in soccer, so it's time that he brings up those two, so that he would find himself better placed to deal with the difficulties that he's facing right now, because this is getting slightly complicated, and it's time for Ashwath to really wake up. If he doesn't do it in time, then his task is becoming difficult more and more. The next and the final board of the GM Close tournament between Ashat Parvanyan and Zar Hassanov is quite well placed for the player with the white pieces, because he has really pushed the black's forces right behind, and black is not in a great shape to defend. So it's just that black is simply hanging on, but one probably silver lining for black will be that he has got more than close to 40 minutes more than his opponent. So white has an advantage, probably a winning advantage, but then he is terribly short of time. So unless he does something pretty much clearly without messing it up, then it could be possible that we have the right kind of result for the position on hand. But in case white touches the panic button and does something that wouldn't benefit him, then we could possibly see a draw or even a different result, because time is a huge factor, and then since we are having a single time control of 90 minutes with 30-second finish, white, which is running down to the last 3 minutes compared to the 43 minutes that of his opponent, really needs to work himself out. And the quickest way will be to start the mass trade-off of pieces. Once the trade-off keeps happening time to time, then his hopes will soar. But right now, despite having a significantly better position, white's chances remain a bit of a concern. We will hope that Short will really have a good shot at having a win when he goes back for his lunch break. We'll now shift to the next tournament, which is the IM Closed. The GM Closed and the IM Closed and the Open are three big tournaments that has come up as a good bit of sequel to the Munich Chess Festival this winter, and it is setting light the cold weather here, and the games are pretty much hot. So I could say that the people coming here to watch get a full bit of entertainment and for their time and effort visiting the playing hall. The IM Closed tournament first board has Lukas Stetner playing Elias Wunderlich, and white has got, I would say, a relatively small advantage, but still has some way to go. And both players have equal time, about 22 minutes each on the clock. So it's really a run-on-run for both white and black. And it can come down to the final few seconds where who is going to complete the moves in the clock with at least 1 second remaining. Here we could see that white has got 2 bishops compared to the 2 knights of black. But with queens off the board, then the possibilities are always more. But right now it looks like the way everything is equal in terms of material, in terms of position, we could only infer that this could quite possibly end up in a draw. But then, of course, you have another round coming up in the afternoon where both the players can really press hard for the win that eluded them in the morning. We'll now shift to the second board, and we could see this result has come there. There's the Indian former Indian amateur champion Hemant Ram has made good his white today. He has defeated Walter Richard in what I could say as probably a miniature game. He just took 23 moves to defeat Walter, who probably gave up when he was about to lose lose an exchange, or probably lose a piece here, because he got into a deadly pin, a double rook and a knight attacked pin on the c6, and then he was unable to save his knight, and not willing to continue, he gave up. So a good result for the Indian boy, who probably could now look forward to his target of making up his second IM norm. A small coterie of Indian players have been playing in Italy and Croatia before coming here, and the other crew had played in Budapest, playing those closed GM and closed IM norm tournaments before coming over here. So I'm sure they would be happy to go back home with at least one norm in the pocket. I'm sure it will make the organizer and the player happy on both sides. We shall now move to the third position between Kulner Ruben Gideon and Robert Zisk in the IM closed tournament. As we could see that Kulner is definitely better and well placed to go on for a win, because largely because of the position advantage, I would say that Kulner is better. We could see that the bishop and the knight and the two rooks are extremely well placed, and black on the other side is doing a defensive job right now. So, and the time factor is pretty much even, as we could see that white has got around 22 minutes and the black has got around 19 minutes. So not such a huge difference, about a little bit of close to 3 minutes. So, but the backward placed pawns and the knight in front of them and the rook behind the pawns. So it shows some bit of positional misplacement of pieces. So black would have to redo some of his minor pieces so that he gets into a better position soon. But still, the Kulner's advantage is, I would say, a little bit on the virtual side, because though it has some bit of a positional edge, it still needs a large bit of conversion technique that is prevalent in these days, because conversion and landing the right kind of moves at the right time is what matters. So that way, I guess it will be good to see how Kulner as well as Robert Zisk handle this tricky position with clock ticking down. Moving on to the next game, you could see that Darshan, another Indian lad who comes all the way from southern part of India, near a place called Sivakasi, where he gets trained by expert coaches and grandmasters at Hatson Chess Academy. So he is also into his third successive tournament here in Europe in hunt for a increase in rating and international master norm to boot with. So today we could see that the game has taken good shape coming out of the Grunfeld, and then right now the boy, he lost his game yesterday, and today he's in some bit of difficulty right now because he is looking to save his attack to queen, and there's also a pawn is likely to fall on c2, followed by another one on b2. So a difficult time is looking at this young boy, but I guess with already a very decent rating to boot with, it's only a matter of time before he starts getting the results one by one, one by one. So right now we could see that black, which has piled up both the rooks and then also the queen, has captured the pawn on e4, attacking the queen, and then the queen probably is likely to go to b3, and then when the rook comes in front of the queen and attacks, and then that is something that they could crash land, but of course it would depend upon how white and black conduct their matches in pretty much the same way. So you could see that Darshan is really in trouble. Yes, actually, even as we were discussing and analyzing the position, he has lost one another pawn, and then I guess unless Loginov makes some mistakes in time pressure, because we could see that Darshan has around 37 minutes to that of 3 for Petrov. So, but he has got a significant position advantage. So I'm not having any doubt as to the black relinquishing his winning grip, because it is not too difficult position to play, but unless he takes huge time to complete his job, then that will be left to regret at a later stage. We shall now move on to the next game in the IM group, which is between Enis Zuferi and Nichols Petriashvili. So Nichols started well yesterday, and today just a little while ago we could see that Petriashvili is probably very close to finishing his job and getting the win, because his opponent is just about having 1 minute on hand, which is possibly a little too much to expect someone to go on to defeat a strong player who has maybe around a 2,400 rated player to go down in a quite a comfortable position, because despite having held up a strong player for such a long, white unable to kind of hold back his huge disadvantage in time, would be finding himself back with a defeat. So, a little bit of a minute on hand is what Enis Zuferi has, but the position itself is not too difficult to handle. The more difficult part to handle would be to see that he doesn't succumb to the time pressure. So that is very important. And we will now go on to the more keenly fought open section, where quite a number of players are there fighting for the rating and the prizes. And right now we could see that Zuferi Enis is just surviving on a move-to-move basis. But this can't go very long because he is very much living on the edge, and as anybody knows, whether it is in the life or in chess, living on the edge is always going to be a difficult task, and then you never know what will happen when. So it's time for Zuferi to kind of push very hard and see that the decent position that he has somehow can bail him out with a draw, because less than a minute on hand, that is the only practical decision he can take. Otherwise, he might end up losing valuable rating points, and then the psychological part of losing the game in the morning and then going and playing another hard game in the afternoon is also going to hang on heavily on him. So these factors, each player would need to weigh before they could decide whether they can really push for a win with barely few more seconds remaining on the clock. Moving out from this Petriashvili and Enis, we will now go to the open section, the top board in the open section. We can see that between Thomas Rick and Arthur Gill, after close to 3 hours of play, it's still very much even, but then it has got a multitude of possibilities, because the white has a rook, knight, and 5 pawns, and black has got 2 rooks and 4 pawns. But the black's pawns are scattered, and they really look a little bit, I would say, powerless right now. White's pawns are actually running one after the other together on the A and B file. So white could really give black a spot of bother if black is not very careful, because the knight on C5 is something that could not be dislodged so easily. So it could really be a hugely bothersome fact for Gil Arthur before he would come up with something, because he has got the material advantage, but somehow the advantage hasn't borne fruit for the black, who has got an exchange upper hand, but material is not everything, as we have seen on many occasions. It is a tool which can be probably used appropriately so that you get the best out of it. We'll now go to the next board, the second board in the open section. Now we have a result there. A quick miniature draw between Birke Dennis and Namik Krasenkov. So they drew with each other with just about 17 moves having been played. So as we could see that the position is, I would say, very interesting with black trying to push everything. But here, probably black was more satisfied with the draw because in many cases, once a piece is sacrificed, you could see that not on all occasions it ends up in the result that we want. So in this case, we could see that despite the king getting placed in a very awkward place, white still managed to bail himself out with a draw. So we'll now go on to the immediate board where we have PD Aman, who should be happy because he has got a good position on hand, playing with Ferdinand Petzelberger. So this small boy, well, not really small, but quite possibly, we could see that Aman is piled up his pieces and then placed them in right squares and has got himself into a significant position advantage, which if he manages suitably, then there is nothing like that. So you could say that Aman is having the upper hand, where Petzelberger is pinned. Because his knight holding the diagonal, which has got a deadly pin for white. You could see that very uncomfortably placed queen and rook is really going to help white more than black himself. So black has got possibly the material, but definitely it is not going in favor of black because it's white which has the upper hand. And we could see that very quickly there should possibly be getting some good results here. The time factor, as we see, is loaded evenly, with white having 25 minutes to that of 21 for black. So possibly the next moves could be something like the queen going away from the pin to c7, attacking the pawn, which can of course be defended in different ways. It's one way that you can save the pawn like this, where the knight retreats and attacks the queen again, and then the rook is also attacked. But one thing that I noticed is that when he had a position advantage, it appeared to be huge. But once you start liquidating, then the position advantage might, peter out quite fast. So that way, I guess, holding back your threats a little longer will definitely make you get your target in a quicker way. And then we now leave the board between Iman and Petzelberger and then go to the next board where a draw has happened. It's a game between David Sedelmeier and Jochen Starub. We had actually reviewed the game last time when a draw was not agreed by his opponent. But right now we could see that black has got a minor edge because the bishop is very well placed. And here we could see that Sedlmayr and Starub had actually, without pushing themselves, had indeed agreed for a draw, but I think with the king on h3, white really had some issues to solve, but black has actually let him go by drawing the game. We'll now go on to the next game between Jochen Schillman and Thomas Effelsor. Schillman has kept on increasing the advantage, and then now he is possibly winning now with more than 25 minutes on hand. It's something that is not likely to let go because there is this pawn on a6 for which we come to various pilgrimages are made for so that they so there is a possibility that one FIDE master here around could possibly hold Grandmaster Shyam to a draw. In fact, I would say that the position is even ripe for him to even go on to push for a win because black is really, really in trouble because of less time and even a lesser convincing position. But sometimes we could see that the kids are happy to draw with a higher rated player, be it a grandmaster or international master, because of the sense of achievement overtakes them more than actually going for the ultimate truth. So that way we could see that it's quite possible that FIDE master Moritz Sittner could upset the apple cart or probably even pick up a draw that could come his way. And the other game that we spoke about where the Hungarian grandmaster Axel Gergely was in trouble has somehow managed to survive the time pressure, but still the tempest has not gone away in full because you get hit by something. You should always stop by to save yourself or not get hit by a second wave. So that way, I guess Axel Gergely would do well to somehow free himself and that of his players to not to miss such a good chance, because here you could see that it is white who is better, and black has got a lot of unanswered questions, but somehow black is surviving by the skin of his teeth. And maybe yesterday it was a different story where opponent. So here we could see that right now Edward Miller has the upper hand, but still he has got to do some homework before he could get his full point. Meanwhile, the Moritz Stettner and Shyamsundar got a little more exciting because Black has managed to go one pawn up by capturing the pawn on the b4. So it is here that Stettner would do well not to go a little astray, because we could say that he had been holding the grandmaster in a tight corner for a long time. So when the time is ripe, he needs to hit, which if he does miss, then these people are very wily and they can make you pay for that and get away with that. So it is important for Moritz not to let go the huge chance that has come his way, because defeating a grandmaster by over the board play is not easy, and then you don't really get positions very similar to these. So that way we could see that Shyam is still pressing very hard for win, because this position, despite rich chances being offered, will be something that probably Moritz will probably remember a long time if he goes on to inflict a big defeat on GM Shyamsundar. In case he misses and then settles for a draw or goes on to win, then it's a different story. But right now we could see that despite the rooks ruling the roost in double, we could see that these white pieces definitely would work to survive and then maybe inflict a defeat on Grandmaster Shyamsundar. The immediate board, we had his prodigy and protige Ashwath, who has roughly an equal position, and right now we could see that Ashwath is facing Duong Kwong back. Here we are looking at this position a little more deeply, and I should say that probably draw is a very objective kind of result that could happen out of this. So, because Ashwath is a player with good calculation skills, and he is not going to walk into some bit of trouble making some mistakes in the last minute. Going to the next game, we could see that Ashwath Parvanyan has actually vastly improved his position and got himself into almost a win when he would be probably expected to complete that work. So because you see, a win not completed may not end up winning, because sometimes a game is not won till it is won. So as we have seen in a number of occasions of cup and the lip, the slip. So one such thing shouldn't happen for the player to regret for the rest of his life. And now going to the open section, we could see that Ray Thomas and Gil Arthur are finding it out in the top board, and finally the knight is the knight could jump out, and then it still looks way bit in favor of black, because a rook is a rook against a knight. So as we could see that more and more pawns getting eliminated puts white's defensive chances more difficult. So that is one thing that could still haunt black a bit, because here we are looking at the possible Indian team that could go on to succeed in the coming weeks, because we could see that these days a huge number of Indian players are hunting tournaments after tournaments in Europe, and it is not a surprise that more than a dozen have come here in Munich to play a series of tournaments. And we could see that the other parts of Europe, already the players around are there, playing in Italy, Spain, and Croatia, and France, because the Christmas and New Year weekends offer a lot of tournaments. The biggest one, of course, is happening in Doha in Qatar, where the World Rapid and Blitz is happening right now, and we have the best players in the world assembled there. Just for an update, yesterday's play was quite exciting, and then Magnus Carlsen, who is playing his first FIDE tournament in a year, started off quite well on day one with 4.5 points out of 5, single draw with Indian grandmaster, who's fondly called as Madman by many, that Erigesi Arjun, held Carlsen to a draw, and Carlsen managed to win the other 4 games, logging in 4.5 on 5. And joining him in sharing the lead were the world champion Gukesh Dumaraju and Erigesi Arjun, and Vladislav Artemiev, along with another speed expert, and is Maxim Machier-Lagrave. Of course, the man who made the news yesterday was not a famous star until yesterday, but then he made his day. That is international master Gautam Krishna from Kerala. The state already has GMs through Geeta Narayanan Gopal and Nihal Sarin, another speed merchant. But yesterday we had Gautam, who comfortably drew with Anish Giri and Alexander Grischuk, and also defeated Taimur Radyabav and Aravind Chidambaram, the Prague Masters winner earlier this year, along with Indik Alexander. So, playing 5 rounds against world-class opponents, he has scored 3 wins and 2 draws at a 4 out of 5. So, there is going to be a huge number of likes and inquiries about this new talent that has emerged one more time from India, which is now a big powerhouse of chess. So that apart, we will now go back to our the Munich Chess Festival, the Winter Festival that has brought up 3 tournaments in one roof at Hotel Atomis in the Munich Airport area, where have a closed GM, a closed IM, and an open tournament. So closed GM is what we are looking now. It's the game between Edward Miller and the grandmaster from Hungary, Axel Gergely. Axel, as we know, is a young grandmaster who works very hard and who also plays the different leagues in Europe and has come all the way from Budapest to Munich to play this tournament. Yesterday, he didn't have a happy start, having losing the first game, and the second game also, well, it doesn't look going his way today, and unless he kind of buckles himself up and does something to save his position, he may probably go on to lose his second game in a row. But these days, the greater concern will be to save the precious ELO rating points, because the rating is worth tons of money these days, and because only of rating, the norms and titles come your way, and the invitations come your way, and the conditions also met favorably for high-rated players. So losing two games in a row could become very unpleasant for Axel Gergely. I'm sure he would really work to somehow save this position, and maybe he just has less than 5 minutes to save himself. So with that, we will take another short break, and then we'll get back more towards a final wind-up report in a few minutes from now. Stay tuned to this tournament in Munich.